Great. So welcome, everyone. My name is Jackie Dagger. I am the program manager for the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative, and I am going to open the December meeting of the VOREC Steering Committee. Today we have, like I said, a pretty robust agenda. I'm going to go ahead and drop that into the chat and review it for you really quick. So we're here at 10 a.m. Or just after. And we're going to get into some welcome and introductions really shortly. We have a couple of new steering committee members with us here this morning, which we're really excited about, and we're going to welcome them. We also have a business meeting. We're going to start that around 10:10, just after the hour, and I gave you all a heads up that we're continuing the round robin format that we started in August, and I prompted you in my email to be thinking about some updates that you might want to share, and I'll explain that more as we get into it. Around 11:10, I'm going to give a presentation, just thinking about reflecting on 2024 and our accomplishments, and around 11:25, we're going to review the VOREC Foundation document that we've been working on, and I'll explain a little bit more about that when we get to that part of the agenda. Around 11:50 a.m., I know we have a number of members of the public or people who aren't on the steering committee with us. We'll open the floor up for public comment if anyone has questions for the steering committee or comments on the content of the meeting today. And we'll start to wrap up with other business at 11:55 and adjourn at 12 p.m. So we have 2 hours together this morning. Any questions on the agenda? Great.
I don't have a question, Jackie. I just want to make sure folks know Claire and I are tag teaming on minutes in the background, and that's why if you see it looks like I'm typing, it's not because I'm answering email or Christmas shopping. I am I am fully engaged in the meeting.
Thanks, Becca. Yeah, and I have a slightly different setup this morning as well. You might see me looking over you instead of at you. I just have some notes I want to make sure I don't forget any important points that I wanted to share with you. All right, so let's do introductions. And if you are tuning in and you're not part of the steering committee, really thank you for being here. We always appreciate when people listen in on these conversations, and we know you're taking time out of your day to be here with us. I'm not going to have you introduce yourself verbally, but please feel free to go ahead and drop your name and your organization in the chat. We'd love to note in our minutes that you are here and also know more about who you are. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to steering committee members, and I'm going to call on folks. And when I do, please go ahead and share your name and your organization. And since we do have a couple of new steering committee members at this meeting, I'd like you to go ahead and just share a brief fun fact. Nothing, it doesn't have to be anything big, but just a small fun fact about yourself to introduce yourself to our new steering committee members. So I'm going to turn it over to Becca first.
I was trying to think about a fun fact. So I'm Becca Washburn. I'm the Director of Lands Administration and Recreation with Forest Parks and Rec, and I also have the great privilege of being the chair of the VOREC Steering Committee. Right now, probably top of mind for me is being the mother of a 4-year-old boy that just makes every day amazing and new and interesting.
Thanks, Becca. Fraser.
Good morning. My name's Fraser Blair. I have been a long-term member of the leadership team at Orvis, and I've actually just left there and am in transition. I am on the board of the Outdoor Industry Association. And I think a fun fact, I grew up ski racing in Vermont. I went to the Green Mountain Valley School where I am now board chair.
Mike, go ahead.
Morning, everybody. Mike Tabanis, Executive Director of Green Mountain Club, joining you from Moortown. Fun fact, I've got 2 dogs and I think 9 motorcycles. Both dogs run. Most of the motorcycles don't.
Great. Abby.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Abby Long. I'm the Executive Director for the Kingdom Trail Association, serving as the mountain bike or voice on VOREC, and also serving with VTGC.
VTGC.
Yes. On VOREC. I won't copy Becca and say that I'm also a mom of a 4-year-old, but my fun fact will be that I will beat any one of you in a handstand contest.
Ooh. Awesome. I'll take that challenge.
Our next
Tommy.
in-person meeting.
Right, yeah. 2025.
Good morning, everybody. Tommy O'Connor. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont ATV Sportsmen's Association, VASA for short. Also sit as the VTGC motorized rep here at VOREC and serve on the VTGC board. Fun fact, we'll keep the winter theme going. I'm super excited as I'm an adaptive ski instructor at Smugs and Stowe, and our season's firing up, and VOREC gave us a brand new toy this year. So I have a new toy to play with over at Stowe.
Thanks, Tommy. Drew.
Hey, my name is Drew Simmons. I'm the founder and president of Hail Morning Media, which is a communications firm that works in the outdoor industry. Sitting here as one of the outdoor recreation business seats on VOREC. And my fun fact, I think, is I only know this because I'm working on another project right now, but I actually started my business 6 years before the creation of the first iPhone. So interesting, weird thing to think back on.
Yeah, seriously. It's been a different time to start a business in. Carrie.
Hi, I'm Carrie Thomas. I'm Executive Director of the Northern Forest Canoe Trail, and I'm struggling with a fun fact. I'm not feeling very fun right now. I don't even know where to go. Maybe on a child-based theme. While I am very water-based myself, both professionally and personally, I have a son who would probably consider himself hydrophobic, does not like water, will not go swimming, doesn't like water at all. So you never know. The apple sometimes falls very far from the tree.
I do think some other steering committee members have joined us. I saw Shelby drop a note in the chat. Shelby, want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Shelby Stems here. I'm New England Regional Vice President for Trust for Public Land, sitting in one of the conservation seats for VOREC Steering Committee. My fun fact is very on the nose for VOREC and conservation. I am like, my great aunt was a woman named Kate Sleeper, who ran an inn for recreators in the White Mountains in the 1800s. And she and other colleagues, or I guess they wouldn't have been called colleagues at the time, but founded one of the earliest hiking outdoor groups in the Northeast, kind of around the time that AMC was founded, but this was called the Wanalancet Outdoor Club. And they still operate today and maintain trails in the Sandwich Range of New Hampshire, of the White Mountain National Forest. But she was also, along with the Wanalancet Outdoor Club, very instrumental in the passage of the Weeks Act, which established the National Forest System in the East. So the synergy between outdoor recreation and conservation is longstanding. So it's my fun fact.
Thanks, Shelby.
So the apple didn't fall far from the tree in that case.
Great. So I am going to get to our new steering committee members in a second, but I want to go ahead and just have a couple of our partners and staff who are joining introduce themselves really fast. And Claire, I'll go to you first.
Hi, everyone. Happy actually winter day today. 4 degrees at my house this morning. I'm Claire Polfus. I serve as the Recreation Program Manager with the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation.
Thanks, Claire.
And your fun
Kelly.
fact is that you coach skiing at Craftsbury.
Sure.
I'm just
Yeah, that's a good
volunteering that
fact.
for you.
Thanks. Looking forward to finally getting out in the woods with some kids this weekend. So it'll be really fun.
And Kelly.
Hello, everyone. Kelly Alt, Executive Director of the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance. And I guess my fun fact is that my sons, which are identical twins, are 21 today. That's a big milestone. Yay.
Nice. All right, great. Did I miss anybody? Did any steering committee members sign on? I didn't catch you. I did see Tommy's note in the chat that Frank is dealing with a personal matter and isn't going to make it. I've also heard from Josh, and it's the only sunny day this week, so he's out doing trail work today. He's not going to be able to make it. Did I miss anyone?
I think before you
Great.
introduce the two new steering committee members are here, we'll maybe just give a shout out to Jeff Alexander, who isn't here. He's at a training for adaptive snowboarding out west, but he is another of our new steering committee members that unfortunately had a conflict, but is coming to us from Vermont Adaptive, which is really exciting.
Yes, thanks, Becca. All right, so with that, I'm going to let our new steering committee members introduce themselves. And we have Sarah and Yeva here. I know Becca sent out a message before the Thanksgiving holiday with some introductions of Sarah and Yeva, and as well as Jeff. And I just want to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves, share just a little bit of what maybe one thing they're excited about joining the VOREC steering committee. Just FYI, they're new. We haven't even onboarded them yet, but they have had a couple conversations with Becca. So Yeva and Sarah, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself, share your name, your organization, and one or two things you're excited about joining the VOREC steering committee. And I'll go to Yeva first.
Hi, my name is Eva Rose. My husband, James Rose, and I own Lamoille Valley Bike Tours. We are a bike and electric bike tour company that operates on the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, and we have been there for 10 years now. And we also operate a full rail trail shuttle service. And so my fun facts are, number one, we're hitting our 10-year anniversary this year, which is very exciting. And I guess my super fun fact is that I have 3 kids, and you'll often see them. They have been on board with our business since they were little and since before my last was born, and have been our first employees ever. And you'll often see them down on the rail trail at our shop, working with alongside us. So that's my fun fact. I am looking forward to learning more about the VOREC steering committee and being part of this. I have a lot of thoughts and ideas and goals, and it would be interesting to see how this committee can be part of that, and how I can be part of this committee.
And it's Yeva. Sorry, I want to make sure we're pronouncing your name properly. I think I've been pronouncing it wrong.
It's Eva, like Longoria,
Eva.
but I was first.
Great. Thanks, Yeva. Sarah.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Pelkey. I am the Community Development Director for the town of Poultney. I have been working in Poultney in the Rutland County area since 2020, working in economic development prior to transitioning to community development for the municipality. I am thrilled to be joining the VOREC committee, really excited to have this statewide network and to be among folks who are working in the same sector, and just learning from all of you. So I'm super excited for that. I'm also a super big planning geek, so I'll be coming at this from a planning perspective, and just really looking forward to that. So I think my fun facts, I guess, I grew up in Vermont snowmobiling. Did not learn how to ski in Vermont, but I moved to Colorado when I was in my mid-20s, so learned how to snowboard in Colorado. And I am now a year 4 beginner mountain biker. Have not really transitioned to intermediate yet. I have a 9-year-old daughter who's been doing a lot of camps at Slate Valley Trails this past summer. So my 9-year-old is teaching me how to mountain bike. And I'm enjoying every minute of that. So thanks, everyone. Looking forward to this.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. And welcome to both of you. I did see that Heather is now on the call. So Heather, want to go ahead and introduce yourself real fast, name, organization, fun fact about yourself?
Sure. Happy to do so. Heather Pelham. I'm the Commissioner of Department of Tourism Marketing and Vice Chair of VOREC. And my fun fact is, I'm sorry I was late this morning, but we were having orientation for new legislators. So that's my fun fact. Happy to be with this group.
Great. All right. So we are going to move on to the business meeting. And as I said, I gave you all a heads up in the reminder email about this meeting. We are continuing the format that we started in August with round robin updates. We felt like that was a pretty successful way to hear from everyone about what's happening in your respective worlds. And considering that this is our last meeting of 2024 and we won't be meeting again until 2025, we thought it was a great moment to reflect on the year and share big accomplishments from 2024 or things that are really exciting that you're looking forward to in 2025. So this will be popcorn style. You can raise your hand. You can go ahead and unmute. I will do my best to facilitate and make sure we get to everyone, but I'll turn the floor over to you to share what you're celebrating at the end of this year. Yeah, Mike.
Morning, everybody. Mike Demoniskin with Green Mountain Club. One of our big highlights this year was we wrapped up a 3-year project that completed a total rehabilitation of the Burroughs hiking trail on Camel's Hump. This is a classic New England fall line trail, straight up and down the mountain, old, historic, well-loved. The club and our partners, including the owner of that trail, Department of Forest Parks and Rec, have been doing kind of annual maintenance on it for years and years and years, and really took a bold step and decided to invest in a total rehabilitation. It was kind of the first of its kind for GMC, first of its kind for this partnership. And I think the success is that it got done in 3 years. It looks great. It was on time, on budget. But I think the thing that's most interesting to me is testing this model of large scale rehabilitation of high value trails, whether they be hiking or snowmobiling or mountain biking, and seeing if this model works and if we can prioritize these really high value trails where it makes more financial sense to make these large scale investments versus just kind of the piecemeal approach of putting a week here, a week there. So much more to learn. We're gathering data and we're going to put some information out about that, but it was a real exciting project to be part of. And then we're almost done with construction of a new visitor center at Green Mountain Club headquarters in Waterbury Center, and that'll be coming online in the new year and will be our base of operations for hiker education for a long time to come. And I don't want to build another building ever again. Thanks.
A lot of good work. Carrie, go ahead.
So my major accomplishment this year is around the fact that about 5 years ago, as an organization, we set the intention very casually in an internal way, really amongst just 2 staff people, to look seriously at how we could make our access points more accessible to people with mobility challenges. And then a year and a half, 2 years ago, a year ago, November, we were standing around at a conference talking to a bunch of people, and out of that came the VTGC proposal to the VOREC steering committee to make this major investment in the Trail Accessibility Hub. And for Northern Forest Canoe Trail specifically, we began doing waterway access assessments this year, and we committed to do 15 through the entirety of the 2-year VOREC grant, and we wound up doing 18 this year alone, which doesn't mean we're done. It just means it took less time, and we're hoping to be able to do double what we were able to do last year. So that's super exciting. And then a little bit further afield, but kind of building skills that we'll bring back to Vermont. With all of this that we've built in Vermont and through our partnership with the National Park Service, our TCA, Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program, we were able to both assess and implement a project on the Allagash to build an accessible campsite and a launch and improve the launch. And we know that somebody in a wheelchair has actually used it this year. So it's not just that we were able to build it, but it's not just out there hoping for somebody to want to use it. So we're just really excited to be building this skill set and adding it to our organizational toolkit, and to use this lens everywhere we go all the time to determine whatever we're doing, is this an opportunity to make this an accessible access point. So I feel really excited about that, proud of it, and grateful to VOREC and the state of Vermont for investing in this as well.
Thanks, Carrie. That's so exciting. And also something a lot of other states across the country are thinking about, and it makes me happy to know that Vermont is really well on our way to thinking about accessibility and of all of our outdoor recreation resources. Abby, go ahead.
This is so fun. All year long, KT has been able to celebrate our 30th anniversary. And we had a huge party with all our landowners and community members back in September. It was like a stunning fall day. And just, so much motivation and encouragement all year long because of that. And that was much needed because, we got rocked a little bit by the July floodings. And because we had obviously some trail damage and bridges, kind of destroyed, washed away. One of the bridges that was pretty devastated was not owned by KT, so we couldn't go after any grant money or flood relief money. It was a vast bridge, actually, and it was a main connection between our trail network and the town to the economic hub of our town. And we were able, with the town's support, community support, a GoFundMe page was created. Huge money was raised by our local community. And just this week, the trail is up and running and ready for snow machine season. And then come spring, when it's bike season again, we'll be able to have our connection into town. And then one final connection, since this is VOREC and Recreation Economic Connection, KT was able to debut rehab one trail and then build 2 new trails parallel to it. But our famous Kitchell Trail, which is named after our founder, Doug Kitchell, it connects the Darling Ridge Trail, part of our network, into town again, to the economic hub. And a little delayed due to the flooding, but we finally got it open in the last month of our season, and it's a blast, and people are pumped. So it was cool. A great, beautiful fall end to the season.
Tommy, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah. So on the VASA side of the ATV world, a couple of cool things up front. We went from 3 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff to a 5 full-time, 1 part-time. We're able to increase so we can do a better work on our network. We came in just under our membership goal. We missed it by, I think it was like 75. But with that, we've launched 2 new campaigns. We started our Ride the Colors campaign to kind of push riding in the fall and coming in and doing all of that. And then through our quick national conference in Minnesota that was attended by myself and our trails coordinator, Ethan Hill. We created a Canadian connection. So we have two of the largest clubs in Canada that are going to start working with us directly to start bringing riders to Vermont through a partnership that way. On that note, kind of celebratory, for those who do know Ethan, was named to the NOVAC board, the National Off-Highway Vehicle Board, and represents private land and private landowners issues. So that's like his title on the board. So we're excited there to have a national representation. Let's see, on the other side of fun stuff, if everything goes as planned with all the great help from Lauren Pyle and Claire over at FPR with the VOREC grant and then a series of other grants, we'll have closed and prepped over $500,000 in grants this year. So that's going to be a huge thing for us for a big undertaking, with a majority of our build season next year being fully grant funded and not using any of our TID funds. It will be all through grants next year through the flood recovery and some RTP work. And
Tommy,
yeah.
What does TAD stand for?
Sure. TAD is our Trail Access Decal program. So in order to ride the trails, it's similar to VAST's TMA sticker. And so that is allowing you to ride our trails. And that money supports maintenance and landowner support. Thank you, Jackie. Gotta love the acronym world. And then the last fun thing on our side, we've been very active alongside Abby and the groups at VTGC on some legislative issues in the off season. A lot of discussion around economic impact work, and then also looking at some landowner recognition work. And we completed a nice meeting, myself, Abby, Nick Bennett from the Mountain Bike Association, Jill from our lobbyist side of things, and Representative Mark Kopp met the State House and had some pretty significant discussions on going forward with economic impact study work, as well as, of course, how do we work to better support and recognize landowners, and what can that look like from the legislative side. So that's a really cool group that's been getting together. And again, I appreciate, having people that are longstanding like Abby and stuff, and then kind of me as the new kid on the block, just kind of doing a little more learning and getting involved with the landowner component of everything. So that's life over at VASA.
Thanks, Tommy. Sarah.
So one of the things that I'm really proud about this past year, I think a lot of folks here probably know the story in Poultney that we started creating outdoor recreation economy in transitioning during the Green Mountain College closure in 2020. It's been a ride. It's been 4 years up and down. And this past year, we had a really interesting moment with our local Chamber of Commerce, where the chamber had been staffed for over 30 years by, the community members, volunteers who had, really had used the chamber in a specific way for that period. And their entire board decided that they were no longer able to continue. It was an older board, and they were not prepared to continue on. And so we had this really kind of dramatic moment with our local chamber, where we didn't know if we would go forward into the future. And it was fascinating to watch this local community that is being built kind of young around outdoor recreation economy, with new businesses, new younger community members support a transition of the chamber. So we had a local business that hosted a mixer. We had some of the older chamber members come and kind of, gather community members, and they were able to appoint a full board and continue the work of the chamber. So that was really fun to watch. There was a lot of energy and momentum around that. And so that was super exciting. I forgot if I'm supposed to be talking about 2025. Are we on the horizon yet, or is that next?
No, you can include something you're looking forward to if you'd like those, Sarah.
Okay, thanks. I'm looking forward. So Poultney also recently received a grant from the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable. So we are really excited about this grant, which is going to be used for visioning an outdoor recreation hub on the site of our town garage. Poultney's town garage is needing to be rebuilt somewhere. We absolutely need a new town garage. So through planning work that we've done over the past few years, better connections and RERC planning, we've identified some other locations that could be higher and better use in the community. And so we were able to get this grant to create some conceptual designs for a new outdoor recreation hub at the town garage. So I'm super excited for that in 2025.
Drew.
Thanks. So I'm in a coffee shop, so I apologize if there's a little background noise. So if there's something that's actually relevant or interesting, somehow just follow up with me later. But, looking back at 2024, so I represent the outdoor business community in my seat. And, even though I'm based in Vermont, I largely work with businesses on the national level with the gear makers, apparel, things like that. And, as much as I value being part of VOREC, a huge part of my brain is on the national outdoor industry and how that's going. To be totally honest, 2024, looking back to January of last year, we knew it was going to be a really hard year, and it was a really hard year for a variety of reasons, which I don't have to get into, but some of those reasons were external forces on the outdoor industry, some of them were internal choices that the industry had made during the pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. And there was a lot of pain in the last year. There were a lot of layoffs, there were a lot of store closures around the country. However, I do feel like even though that has been a bummer for a lot of people and a lot of businesses and a lot of communities, it does seem like things are on a positive trajectory. And it's interesting. So, primarily I work in PR and communications, but oftentimes we're leaned on for other parts of our marketing spectrum. And we get a lot of visibility on some other things. And, that what people are starting to be more interested in right now, which I think is really interesting, is what we call IRL events in real life, right? Events, in-person activations, physical products, which is this fascinating word, which actually refers to magazines, are now called physical products. And it's really interesting. There was such a boom in outdoor recreation product sales during the pandemic, largely digital, largely online. People were sitting at home and ordering everything and having it shipped to their door. And that had an effect. That certainly had an effect that is trickled true to today. But what people are seeing digitally is the cost of digital marketing is getting more expensive and having fewer results. And so they are looking at IRL stuff and trying to figure out what are we missing? What aren't we doing now that we were doing pre-pandemic? And, I personally feel like in real life stuff that's the outdoor economy, that's the outdoor recreation space. And, I'm not saying the digital world is going away. It certainly isn't. It's going to be more of our lives every day. But I do think there are some positive things on the horizon. And I think generally speaking, it's I'm more optimistic looking forward into 25 than I was looking into 2024. So just some thoughts there.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. I've noticed that too. A lot of more like printed magazines coming out, a lot of people really wanting that in-person gathering again, and more events popping up because of that. Eva.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, just to share on these notes, one thing, especially VOREC related, with my business, we're constantly working on enhancing, rural Vermont. We're very rail trail focused. And one thing speaking of floods and trail damage, as everyone knows, the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail in its inaugural year was closed for the entire summer of 2023 due to flood damage across the entire trail. So one great thing about 2024 I could say was the usership was still pretty high for having the previous year. Obviously all the marketing, all of the buzz around the rail trail had to stall due to that flooding. And another aspect of our business is the rail trail shuttle. So we speak with the majority of the trail travelers on our shuttle, helping navigate their travels. And so it was good to see that it wasn't, folks weren't terribly discouraged by the previous trail closure and the additional closures of 2024, the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail sustained more flooding that year, last year, and we definitely lost some usership, but it didn't discourage everybody. There was still a good amount of trail travelers across the state of Vermont. And one good thing about the VOREC community grant, my town of Johnson, Vermont, as well as I'm in contact with a lot of municipalities across the rail trail from St. Johnsbury to Swanton, because we're in these communities daily with our shuttle and our business, and working with the folks that are traveling, mainly tourists, is that a lot of the communities, and something I've been encouraging them to do, are using the VOREC community grant to figure out, to utilize that to benefit their town, whether it's creating bike lanes or looking into the creation of bike lanes to draw people off the rail trail and into their communities, improving their trailheads, and many other ways that folks in these towns across the rail trail, there are 18 towns, are utilizing that VOREC community grant. So it was incredibly important to the rail trail, and I'm going to continue. I hope to see more hopping on board using that opportunity to create that economic development for their own towns. But to see that a handful of them are using that for the rail trail, which is only going to increase in population, was really encouraging to see, and I hope that will increase going forward in 2025. And the one thing I'm optimistic about 2025 is we're already hearing from travelers across the country planning to come to Vermont and travel, and it seems like there's going to be some good momentum for the rail trail in this coming year. So,
thanks, Eva. And I just saw Carrie drop in the chat a comment about VOREC flood recovery funding for several river cleanups operating in partnership with cleanups of the LVRT as well. Fraser, go ahead.
Yeah, there have been a number of changes at Orvis in 2024, a giant restructuring, and with that, reduction in force. But there have also been a lot of things that are unchanged, and that includes our why. And our why is conservation and sustainability and outdoor recreation. So we continue to be committed to that in all the ways that we have been. And in terms of our commitment to the state of Vermont, our home office remains here. We make all of our fly rods in Manchester. Our flagship store is in Manchester, and it will continue to be in Manchester. We continue to be connected with Kelly and VOBA. I will continue to represent Orvis at the Outdoor Industry Association board for the remainder of my term. So there are a lot of things that remain the same. Orvis is a 170-year-old company, and the reason for all the changes is because we want to be around for another 170 years. In terms of what I'm looking forward to in 25, I think there are a lot of unknowns from you right now, personally being in transition, but short term, I'll be able to lean in even more with VOREC given the opportunity or the need, or with OIA given the opportunity or the need. So thank you.
Thanks, Fraser. So I'm just looking and seeing who we haven't gotten to yet. And I can call on folks if needed, but I'm curious if anyone who hasn't spoken yet. Oh, and I see Heather's hand is up. Go ahead, Heather.
That's all right with you, Jackie. I'm happy to go next. I think that the one thing that I think in terms of, looking back at 24 and 25, I think folks have known I've shared updates as we go along about the implementation of the EDA funding that we received. And there's just been a lot of really exciting stuff that has come to pass in 24, and we'll continue to roll it through 25 around basically just research. And so I just wanted to remind folks or let you know that we are about to embark on a strategic planning effort. We are creating a destination management strategic plan for the first time. We've hired the Coraggio group to do that. I don't know if folks are familiar with them, but they have a lot of experience in destination stewardship, and are really looking forward to involving this group as we go along. There's going to be a lot of, regional forums around that, in one-on-one interviews and so forth, lots of stuff to kind of inform that. We'll be bringing in all the work from Move Forward Together Vermont and other strategic plans from other organizations to kind of make sure that we have that synthesis and kind of mapping out, a certain, what are the relationships as they relate to the visitor economy. So it's, huge overlap with this group. So really excited about that going forward. Hope folks will continue to stay engaged, and please feel free to reach out if you want to be super engaged in that with us. And then another thing I just wanted to mention again was we're doing this visitor survey. So we're doing a year-long effort to make sure that we can learn as much as we can about the profile of our visitors. So we started a bit of a soft launch in the fall. It's going to go all the way through to next fall. And it's a combination of, we do have in-person interviewers, throughout the state where we can. We're doing this through a research contractor. We can't have folks everywhere. So there is also an online component, and I'll put in the chat if folks are interested in helping us promote this. There's postcards available. There are table tents that we can provide. There's a downloadable poster. So anybody who has that, I'm thinking, Mike, Eva, Abby, it'd be great to capture the outdoor recreation enthusiast, in terms of encouraging folks to fill out this survey. And, again, we want to see that, in all seasons and so forth. So the more that anybody can help us get out the word that there is this ability for folks to do this survey effort online would be great. And then, Jackie, I don't know if it's okay if I mention the Outdoor Rec Economic Impact Project, or if you wanted to do that a different time.
I was going to get into it in the look ahead in the year in review, but I'm happy for you to share some information about that, and I can fill the gap. Okay, I'll
save it. Go ahead. All right, that's just what I want to really mention. I think it's really exciting for the department to be in this position where we're doing this level of planning and research, and we also just are about to release a RFP for a new brand study. So that will be getting into more of the the quantitative and the qualitative parts of the brand and how we use that going forward as well. So just lots of activity there. Happy to keep folks informed. Thank you.
I can't believe you did a review of 2024 and didn't mention the eclipse once. Like that was the marketing idea of the year. Like, let's host an eclipse in Vermont. Like, it was so good.
I know. You're right, Drew.
Good point.
Maybe Jackie's got it in her slideshow. Who knows?
I don't, but it's a lot that's happened this year. Okay, let's Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you. Tremendous updates. It's exciting to kind of summarize, even from this small group, the tremendous impact that we've had on outdoor recreation communities and in the economy this year. I'll just be brief and happy to provide additional details after, but bringing some of the business development successes and a few things to look out for in 2025. I think most of you, and I'm sorry, not all of you, were able to attend the Outdoor Economy Summit in November, and it was a culmination of a lot of great work around the outdoor economy. It featured business development, workforce development, outdoor hubs, and Move Forward Together Vermont workshops, which really allowed us to delve into big conversations, not just thinking about what we need today, but looking 5 years down the road as part of the Move Forward Together Vermont process. A lot of the impact areas from Move Forward Together Vermont at that summit and moving forward will be in climate resiliency, equity, innovation, and sustainability, and career pathways. And so that event generated a lot of excitement and engagement about the work ahead, and that will work with all of you and many other partners moving forward. Just wanted to mention the EDA travel tourism and outdoor recreation grants, connecting to Heather's update in that VOBA did receive funding for ski, bike, and trail trainings for professionals. And we were able to very quickly put together a snow sports technician training in October to provide 4 classes, 8 hours of instruction by technicians to 7 students, which will benefit 3 businesses and an organization, and being able to provide technical services to meet the demand for ski and snowboard technicians across the state in both retail and rental facilities. So that was a pretty exciting start, and more to come in 2025. Just talking about 2 VOREC projects moving forward, which will wrap up our VOREC community grant program. Well, Brian Lamore, I hope you all have met him. He's our new outdoor careers and business development manager that we've been able to support with VOREC funding to help us wrap up both a career project and a career project and a business development project early in 2025. And that includes a partnership with Capital Innovation Lab and a financial assistance cohort this winter for businesses that have a specific project or financial decision that will help them grow or sustain their business. And then the other piece is an outdoor careers guide, and we'll be showcasing technical careers in construction, mechanics, instruction, and manufacturing, as well as a host of others, and really providing 10 spotlights on professionals in the field, and really trying to package and market the outdoor sector as a great place, a great sector for those that are young and seeking entry into a career, or those that are switching from other careers, for both Vermonters and those who would like to move here and work in our really fun and passionate sector. So you'll see more about those 2 pieces later today. And so just wanted to thank you all for the support of VOBA, our partnership, and looking forward to more work together in the coming year.
Thanks, Kelly. Becca, go ahead.
Thanks, Jackie. I think I've been spending a lot of time doing reflections and celebrating accomplishments over the past year, including the eclipse. And I think it's really exciting to see that we've, as an organization, we have been building towards where we are now for quite some time. We launched Move Forward Together Vermont to try and get clear direction on what Vermont needs from the outdoor recreation economy and how VOREC can really help stimulate that. We have been growing our capacity in our division and organizing in a way to make our work more impactful. We awarded over 6 million in grants this year, which is huge. And we're already seeing the impacts of that grant work, not just in the exciting story that Carrie shared, but all across the state. So really fabulous to see the impact of this work really happening. And I think, again, the hard work that we've been doing as an entity to make sure that we're poised to be really effective in implementing Move Forward Together Vermont with a whole host of partners that can help us expand the impact of the work and really drive towards achieving those priorities that we set all together. So I think it's always exciting when you're on the eve of having really strong direction and the ability to be incredibly strategic, both with partners, with the time that we spend, with the funds that we have. And I'm just so excited about what 2025 is going to look like with respect to the focus we've brought to the work that we're doing, the new steering committee members that we've brought on, and having steering committee members that have been here since the very beginning that can help us really celebrate where we've come from and where we're headed. So just a lot of gratitude and a lot of enthusiasm and excitement for what's coming.
Thanks, Becca. Shelby.
Great. I wanted to just mention a couple of Trust for Public Land specific things, and then some systems level stuff. I think that were wins in the last year. So we were actually really thrilled to, in 2024, add a staff member to our land protection team, which for us, with an overall small footprint's a big overall growth from a percentage basis. And in terms of some of our projects with nexus of outdoor recreation and kind of land conservation, 2024, we were successful in securing Inflation Reduction Act source funds for forest legacy funding to support an expansion of Victory State Forest and a conservation easement in an area called Moose River, which has some of the I am not a water person, so Carrie, I have to defer to you a little bit here, and your colleagues, but has some of Vermont's sort of premier whitewater, and will enhance and permanently protect access to that stretch of the river. And similarly, this is a similar federal funding program that we work in partnership with State of Vermont, FPR. Quite frequently, but we are excited as a result of some of the additional capacity we've brought online to have entered an agreement with landowners to advance a new project that's actually along the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. So Eva, I'd love to follow up with you about that. This is a 1,500 acre conservation easement in Fairfield, Bakerstown area. And we've been partnering actually pretty closely with backcountry hunters and anglers on support for that work, and we'll be putting forward an application. And then on this kind of systems level stuff and conservation sector, I think I'll mention that the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, which is one of the principal state funding agencies for conservation, has really emphasized, I don't know, if we're quite seeing a huge volume of this yet, but it's really trying to emphasize the development of dual mission projects among project proponents from the conservation and the housing side. And I think, it's not that every conservation project or housing project has necessarily an outdoor access or conservation play. Sometimes they are distinct and need to be distinct, but in those places where we can identify and secure property for dual mission work, I think we will see the coalition and nonprofit actors identify those. I also wanted to reflect on the I guess it was a suite of panels at the VOBA conference that I partially participated in and got a chance to take in one of the breakout sessions, and it focused on kind of land use policy, both the essentially reform of Act 250, which came to pass this legislative session, which is really going to hopefully accelerate development and kind of infill development in downtown areas, and then enhance protection in core forest areas and some other areas where kind of the regulatory oversight gets a little higher in favor of loosening of the regulatory environment in places where we do want to build, grow, and bring homes and businesses more online. So I think that, combined with Nick Bennett talking about the landowner protection conversations and kind of evolving that conversation, and last but not least, the 30 by 30 progress that was made over the last year. I just was really, having been in the mix on some of those conversations for 6+ years, kind of amazed to see what progress has been made actually on some of these really big ideas or vexing need for reform, at a regulatory or policy level. And so that feels like a bright spot. A lot of it's still in motion. The last thing I will mention, though, and it's a bit related to 30 by 30, is I am reflecting on sort of the whiplash that state and especially federal agencies are experiencing right now, where we have a mandate to accelerate conservation, 30 by 30, and then we don't really know what the funding environment is going to be like at the federal level. And there's kind of a really wide range of concerns or uncertainties about what the future looks like. But to end on a high note, it's been really heartwarming to see how particularly some federal agencies are working really hard to obligate funds, get money working on behalf of all Americans that has been, committed and awarded. And I think in terms of looking forward to next year, I will wrap this up we're hopefully going to cut a ribbon on a new addition to the Green Mountain National Forest in the town of Wallingford that would expand the forest by about 500 acres along kind of the Ice Beds Trail in Wallingford. If anyone's ever been there, it's a very cool place. And right near the White Rocks National Recreation Area. So looking forward to that.
Nice. Thanks, Shelby. Claire, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I thought in the spirit of updates, there might be a couple from FPR that this group might be particularly interested in. 24 was a really big year for a lot of things. We signed the Worcester Range Management Unit Plan. We're in pre-rulemaking around the long range management planning rule. I think many of you have been engaged in that. But we're also doing like some maybe smaller scale, but like equally important for recreation process improvements. And one of which is that we are very, very close to publishing we've called our recreation rec eco guidelines. And so the guidelines for implementing projects on state lands that minimize impacts to ecological resources. This is a like fairly groundbreaking compendium of like our recommendations for how to site recreation projects on state lands, and it's particularly important as we start implementing Move Forward Together Vermont on state lands, how we are engaging with our colleagues across the agency at DEC and Fish and Wildlife, and ensuring that like our public lands are well protected while we're also providing really important recreation opportunities. And with that, we also updated our recreation project review process, which is how we engage with partners on state lands and how partners can suggest or propose different projects. And so we're working to create all, like Becca said, we're like creating all these systems to like be able to put into place a lot of the like big picture work that all of you mentioned. And I thought some of you might be interested in that update.
Yeah, thanks, Claire, for adding that from the FPR perspective. I have a couple of just program updates to share with you all before we move on, but I just like hearing all of your updates. It's so, like Becca was saying, like we've been doing so much work this year, and as I've been reflecting on 2024, I really feel like the work that we've been doing is creating this launch pad for 2025 that we're really just going to expand on what we've done this year. And I think, you know, as we go through the year in review update, that will be evident as well. I want to, so just quickly, there are a few events on the horizon that I thought you all would be interested in coming up in early 2025. And please feel free to drop any events you're aware of in the chat as well. But really starting early next year, there's Outdoor Recreation Day that's been scheduled for February 12th. There's the Vermont Economic Conference happening in late January. We know that Tourism Day is going to be happening again, and I'm sure Heather will share a date with us once that's actually scheduled, but we know that stakeholders are organizing for that event. There's also going to be a Manufacturing Industry Day, and the Vermont Tourism Summit is going to be in late April. So just wanted to put a couple of those events on your radar as you're thinking about how you're spending your time early next year. I also wanted to announce that Move Forward Together Vermont, the SCORP report coming out of our planning process this year has been approved by the governor, and Claire just sent it to the National Park Service earlier this week. So we're really celebrating that and the conclusion of what has been a really important and meaningful process. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you all for your participation. And we're looking ahead to 2025 and what comes next, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We do have a couple of minutes. I'm just curious if anyone had questions on any of the updates that were shared, anything for anyone who shared an update before we move on.
I don't have a question, but I will confirm to Shelby that while I have not paddled the Moose every single time I drive past it, I wish I had a boat and enough time to actually paddle it. So I can't wait to get over there.
Cool. Great. Well, then we'll move on. And so I did a presentation last year at our meeting in December, just thinking back from a programmatic perspective at the year and then looking ahead a little bit to 2025. So I'm not going to make this a really long presentation. We've heard from you all your updates, and I think a lot of them are reflected in the presentation I've pulled together. But I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen and share a little bit more with you from the VOREC program perspective on 2024. All right. And you all should be seeing the first slide. Can you see that? Not my notes?
Yep. We do.
Great. All right. So as we heard from all of you, we have really done so much work together this year. And as Becca said, from a systems perspective, we've been putting a lot of things in place to really move forward with projects that strengthen Vermont's outdoor recreation economy and launch us into more work together in the next year. And like I said, I'm aiming for this to be a pretty short presentation, but there is a lot of detail in these slides, and I will send it out following this meeting so you can dig into some of the details if you'd like. All right, so I just wanted to start with a quick review of the Bureau of Economic Analysis data. So this data is released on an annual basis. It's data that reflects from a federal perspective the impact of outdoor recreation on state GDP. And so this data was released in mid-November, and I've been looking at this data and thinking about, what are the big highlights and trends that we might be interested in here in Vermont. And again, I know many of you are familiar with the BEA data that's released. It is I would say, pretty broad in how they define outdoor recreation economy. And it's a good way for us to compare what our experience in the state of Vermont is and what outdoor recreation looks like here to other states across the country. I think we all are aware that the data has some gaps in terms of when we look a little deeper into the regional and local level in our states. It doesn't, it's not as good of a data source, but when we look at the federal level, it does tell us how things change over time. I was having fun with the interactive tables that BEA puts on their website, and I pulled out this one because this year the BEA released data back to 2012, which is data we haven't really been able to access since they released it. They started collecting this data in 2012. We haven't really, but after that year, they sort of just updated it on an annual basis. We couldn't see back. I think this table is just interesting to look at because of what it reflects about growth in our outdoor recreation economy over time. I mean, no surprise that the impact of outdoor recreation dropped pretty drastically in 2020, not unlike other states across the country. But really where I think is really interesting to look at is after the pandemic, the growth that our outdoor recreation economy saw, and that it grew so much more exponentially than prior to the pandemic. I think you can see that growth is that the amount of growth we're seeing is slowing down a little bit just if you look at the growth between 2021 and 2022 and 2022 and 2023. So just a couple of things that I thought were interesting. This is what the BEA data for 2023 reflects about outdoor recreation in Vermont that year. And really excited to see that Vermont maintained our second in the country for contribution to state GDP at 4.8%, so a little bit higher than in 2022. The number of people working in Vermont's outdoor industry also grew to 16,000. That was a little higher. It was closer to 15,000 in 2022. Another bright spot to be aware of is that accommodations and food services grew by 9%. So it's pretty significant because accommodations and food services already makes up so much of the outdoor economy in Vermont. So interesting to note that, and also to think back to 2023 when we had flooding in July, and we were really worried about people being able to, or people knowing that Vermont was open and inviting people to come to our state. And to see that growth despite the flooding, I think is significant. Manufacturing also grew by 15%. Manufacturing overall is a smaller portion of Vermont's outdoor economy, but what was really interesting to see was that employees in manufacturing grew by 12%. So I'm curious to know more about, what was creating that growth in employment, and a question for us to consider and dig into a little more. Retail sales also grew by 4.5%, and in particular, guided tours and outfitted travel grew by 8.1%. And I thought, Eva, that might be a data point that you would be interested in. And then finally, snow activities continues to be Vermont's top industry. We're currently 9th in the country for contribution from snow activities. That's a little bit of a drop from in 2022 when we were 6th in the country. All right, so let's get into a little bit of a reflection on the programmatic highlights we had this year. Again, I'm not going to read everything on these slides, and I'll send it out following this meeting so you can dig in a little more detail. But I wanted to start with our activity in the legislature. Since this was at the beginning of 2024, it's a little further in the past. We were really active in the legislature this year. Outdoor recreation was a bigger part of the conversation. Outdoor Recreation Partners organized the first ever Outdoor Recreation Day at the State House, which was a big success. We saw a lot of people showing up at the State House, talking with legislators and providing testimony. So we were really excited to see that activity. VOREC also provided testimony along with the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation. We talked to legislators in the House Committee on Agriculture, Food Resilience, and Forestry, as well as the House Commerce and Economic Development Committee. And we tracked and were a part of bills. So we saw H673 in discussion in committees, and that was an act relating to Vermont's outdoor recreation economy. It called for support for the collection of outdoor recreation economic impact data at the local level, as well as support for VTD, or the Vermont Trails and Greenways Council, and funding for trail best management practices. We heard from a lot of you about the impact that the VOREC Community Grant Program is making, especially this year. I won't go into depth on the stories because I think you've said quite a lot. But we did earlier this year hold a press conference to announce recipients of the fiscal year 22 grants. That event was held at the Vermont Adaptive Facility at PICO. And we saw a lot of the grant recipients show up for that event and participate in that event. It was a really great afternoon, and we were excited to see so many people celebrating the distribution of that funding. We also, through the VOREC Community Grants Program, saw the completion of several flood recovery and repair projects this year, in particular the North Branch Nature Center, as well as projects that VAST, as you heard from Tommy, we're working on. We also, I think this is something that we haven't had a chance as much to talk about as a steering committee, but this year we have, within the Department of Forest Parks and Recreation, created an Department of Forest Parks and Recreation outdoor recreation grants team, which is a huge success. This means that we have more alignment between the administration of grant programs that are funding outdoor recreation through the Department of Forest Parks and Recreation, including the VOREC Community Grants Program, the Recreational Trails Program, and the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Through the formation of that team and that capacity, we've been able to do some really good assessment of the VOREC Community Grants Program to date. If you haven't been on the Community Grants website recently, there's a new map that's available, which highlights where VOREC Community Grant funding has gone across the state. I included a photo on this slide just so you could see it, but you can actually go to the website and interact with that map and see where grant funds have gone, as well as some description of what that funding has been used for. Our Outdoor Recreation Grants Program Manager has also done some really good analysis of what funding has been used for, and we have more data about what kinds of projects overall for community grant funds have been going to since our initial round in 2019. So you can see at the bottom right of this slide a little more information about that. And I hope as we look to the future, we can come back and present a little bit more of that information to you all. And that is something that I've been thinking about. All right. So strengthening partnerships. Partnerships are a huge part of the VOREC program. We not only work on strengthening partnerships within the state of Vermont, but we also work on strengthening our partnerships as a region and at the national level. This year, we, as Kelly mentioned, Kelly didn't mention this, but if you can think back to earlier in the spring of this year, we held the second Northern Forest Outdoor Symposium. This was a pretty major event for the Northern Forest region. It was the second time we brought together stakeholders from across the region to talk about outdoor recreation economy. The first symposium actually is what directed funding to states to establish offices of outdoor recreation. So you can get a sense of the scale of the conversations that happen at the symposium. So we're really excited to participate in that, and Kelly, as well as myself, participated in the planning committee for that event. We also participated, or I participated on behalf of the state of Vermont in the Confluence of States. We participated in monthly meetings. We went to 2 in-person events with leaders of offices of outdoor recreation from across the country, as well as I was able to lead the work group, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice work group, which led to the adoption of a 5th pillar for the Confluence of States, which we've called the Experience and Opportunity Pillar. I also just wanted to note Capital for a Day came back this year. This is the governor's office encourages Capital for a Day for his cabinet to go and talk to different towns, municipalities about what's happening in those regions. And we were able to plan a really robust conversation in Waterbury, as well as a conversation in East Burke that Kingdom Trails was really important in organizing. And visioning. So I think we've been talking about Move Forward Together Vermont throughout this year. We're at the end of this really large-scale planning process. The SCORP report, as I mentioned, is in the hands of the National Park Service. So we have been doing just a ton of vision setting this year. I also wanted to mention that as part of Move Forward Together Vermont, we did a number of surveys. We had the first ever outdoor business survey, and we're coming out of this year with more data about outdoor recreation in Vermont than we've ever had before. This is really exciting because we can start to look at that data and encourage others to analyze this data with us to get more information out of it, and that can help us direct projects. It can help us understand where we want to direct funding. So really excited to have all of that data coming out at the end of this year. We also, in vision setting, have supported our outdoor recreation partners in their organizational development. So we were able to direct funds to the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance, as well as the Vermont Trails and Greenways Council over this year to work on developing their internal work plans. And those are set to be complete by the end of this month. So also we've supported a lot of that organizational development in our partners, which is really exciting. All right, so that brings me to a look ahead to 2025. And like I said, I feel like all of the work this year in 2024 has really created this launch pad for us moving into 2025. And that includes Move Forward Together Vermont. As we're coming to the close of this year and the completion of that SCORP report, I'm really actively thinking ahead to next steps and the communication and implementation of Move Forward Together Vermont. We're still nailing down all of the details of what implementation and our communication looks like, and really like the components of a communication strategy is really something we're thinking about right now, and I'm thinking about right now. But what we do know is that as we're looking to early 2025, we're exploring what it looks like to hold a press conference and launch a communication strategy. We're identifying opportunities to, in the legislature, provide testimony about Move Forward Together Vermont. And we're also looking for opportunities to join conferences and other events to present and raise awareness about Move Forward Together Vermont and the vision and priority actions that we're coming out of this year with. I want to highlight for this group in particular that we will be looking for steering committee participation as we move forward with the communication strategy and implementation, and also others to participate, help us tell stories that really reinforce the vision and priority actions that we have identified and Move Forward Together Vermont. So more to come overall here, but I anticipate that we'll be discussing this further at our first meeting in 2025. You heard Heather give a glimpse of this project, our work on the Outdoor Recreation Economic Impact Assessment. And I wanted to highlight this for you all because this is a project that we're going to be working on, or the Department of Tourism and Marketing is going to be working on in 2025. This project, so as I mentioned, there was H673 that was discussed in the legislative session earlier this year. And that bill didn't get past committees, but it did raise a lot of awareness about the importance of data about the impact of outdoor recreation's economic impact at the local level. And so although that bill didn't get very far in committees, the Department of Marketing, Tourism and Marketing and Heather recognized that there is this need, and they were able to reallocate some of their funding from the EDA to serve the purpose of collecting some initial data. So we've been working together on what this project looks like, what we really need or what we can fund through this funding source. And this fall, we worked on a RFP. We brought in both Nick Bennett and Kelly to provide some review and input on that RFP from the Vermont Trails and Greenways Council and the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance perspective, because they were really active in the discussions on H673. And then we put that RFP out to bid just earlier in November. And we got some really compelling proposals. And I'm really excited to share that we've narrowed down the contractors, and we are in the process of nailing down the contract. So I wanted to share with you just a general outline of the scope. And again, we're nailing down the details with the contractor, but I want to make sure you're aware of the things that we're going to be thinking about as we start to embark on this project. In the scope of the contract, we're looking at an assessment of data that exists that can help us reach the local level and gain a better understanding of the gaps, so we can start to understand what information we need to fill those gaps. We've included an assessment of the BEA data and how that data at that statewide level can help inform information we need at the local level. Part of the scope is the development of a toolkit that can help communities and organizations collect and interpret economic impact data, and then utilize that information for, their own purposes. A lot of communities look for this data when they're applying to grants, when they're looking for federal technical assistance. It's useful for us to have that, for them and the state to have that information. And then we want to pilot the toolkit in 5 communities. And we're thinking these communities are going to have represent different geographic areas of the state, and also experiences with outdoor recreation. And then the final sort of component of this scope that we're conceptualizing is a final report. And this final report is important because I think it'll give us information about the process, but we also want advice on next steps. How can we, through the creation of this toolkit, how can we support the use of this toolkit in communities? What resources do we really need to make it feasible for communities to use this toolkit? And then how can we, at the state level, collect that data that communities are creating, both for a better understanding of the impact of outdoor recreation at the regional level, but also at the statewide level. Great, and I will, if anyone has questions, I will ask for questions pretty shortly. Lastly, we're looking ahead at the legislative session. We already know that, and I said this previously, but Outdoor Recreation Day is scheduled for mid-February. We're already bringing together outdoor recreation partners, as we did last year, to track activity in the legislature and talk about how we can support each other. I've already heard people talking about topics that include workforce, housing, PFAS, as well as incentives for private property owners, and funding for bike ped programs. And we have some exciting news to share about this future funding for VOREC community grants. And Becca, I wanted to turn the floor over to you to share a little more information about that.
Thanks, Jackie. Anybody familiar with the state's budgeting process knows that there's a lot more sausage making to happen here, but really excited as we were developing our budget and thinking about our policy priorities for the year. Heather and Danny and I had a little jam session, Danny being FPR's commissioner, had a jam session just kind of talking about how we could align on priorities. And Heather had the great suggestion, like, you know what, we're seeing VOREC really take off. It's becoming recognizable. Its impact is being seen across the landscape. It's time for us to go for broke and ask for some base funding that would be sustainable year over year. So Danny pitched that idea to the governor's administration, including our secretary for A&R, and they were supportive. So we've put forward $1 million ask that would be used to advance VOREC's priorities. That's probably largely going to be in the form of grants, but we expect that we'll have the latitude to apply that in ways that respond to priorities identified by Move Forward Together Vermont or other sort of expressed demand or need. So really exciting to see that while, you know, there's still a long way to go, things could change. This is the first time the administration has expressed an interest in making a commitment to outdoor recreation on a sustainable basis. And I think that's in large part owing to all of you doing a great job making sure that VOREC was demonstrating its success through all the different avenues that we've been participating and really seeing the impact of the work. So much of this is thanks to all of you, and you know, hopefully we're successful. Hopefully the legislature says, no, that should be 2 million or 8 million or something else. But right now we're going for $1 million.
Can I add one thing to that, Becca? I think just so folks understand, part of the strategy here is to go through the budget development process as opposed to going through the policy committees. So it's just, you know, legislation has different ways. So basically this is a base funding ask for VOREC in FPR's budget. I'm a big fan of nothing to see here, great budget, check, thanks very much, as opposed to bringing it up as in the policy committees as a new something or other. Anyway, that's the strategy here. So we'll see how it goes.
So far, so good, Heather. I think you had some really good advice.
All right. Any questions before we move on to our next agenda item? Great. Lots of exciting things happening. And like I said, I'll send those presentation slides out to you. If you're interested in any of the things, the information in those slides that maybe you weren't aware of or you want more information about, just feel free to email me and let me know. Okay, with that, I saw that Andrew has joined the meeting. Welcome, Andrew. And Andrew and I are going to review with you the outcomes of the meeting. So the VOREC Foundation document. If you can remember back to a couple meetings ago in August, we throughout this year, in addition to our work on Move Forward Together Vermont, have been because the goal this year has been to create a vision and set of priority actions that we can really launch in 2025 and start to utilize the VOREC network to be working together on that vision and set of priority actions. And a couple of meetings ago, our last virtual meeting in August, we introduced this idea of a foundation document for VOREC because VOREC, because of our structure and the collective impact network that we support, it makes a lot of sense for VOREC to be the program that's helping to implement on the Move Forward Together Vermont vision and set of priority actions. But to do that, we wanted to define or create some better shape around VOREC as a program, who we are, and what it is that we're working on with the network of partners that we support. So to do this, we are creating this foundation document, And the document is intended to provide a guide both for the program, but also for you as steering committee members, for new steering committee members who are coming on board as transitions happen, and codify really, what the VOREC program is and what we're aiming for. I think Andrew has underscored this well, that this is not a document that can't change, that, we're kind of looking, this is our first shot at what this is and our sort of explanation of who VOREC is as a program and what we're trying to do with our network. This document can change as we move forward as a program. But today, I'm really excited that we have a very close to a final draft of this document that we're ready to share with you. Coming out of conversations that we started in August, a really big in-person meeting we had in October where we talked about a lot of the content that we might want reflected in this document. And what I'd like to do right now is review that document at a high level with you. And then Andrew is going to take us through just some brief discussions. We are planning to send this document out to you all following this meeting with a feedback form, which I know you all love. But that form is going to have some prompting questions in it for you to be thinking about and considering as you do a more in-depth review of the content in the document. So I just want you to be aware that that's coming. All right. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about the structure of this foundation document. Does anyone have questions? Does this sound familiar, totally out of left field, that I should try and address before I do that? Okay, great, awesome, glad to hear it. All right. Give me a second. Great, so you all should be able to see my screen.
Yes.
Great. All right, so this is the foundation document that we've been pulling together. It has, and we shared an early version of the sections of this document with you, but where we've landed is that there's a few major sections of this document. So we have a one-pager that describes VOREC's mission, purpose, and goals. We have a section on defining the governance structure of VOREC. So this really includes information about the steering committee, the administration of the program, the role of the program manager, and also some of our expectations for annual operational activities. There's a section on building and coordinating VOREC's network, which you'll see, and then how it works. So this section is about, how do we share resources with members of our network? What does communication look like? And then how do we connect to this larger vision that we have as a state for outdoor recreation? This is the one-pager with the information about our mission, purpose, and goals. And you'll be able to review this in a lot more detail, but this is a highlight. We talked quite extensively about our mission, purpose statements, and our goals at our meeting in October. And Andrew and myself have been doing a lot of work to incorporate the feedback that you all shared during that meeting into this one-pager. So I hope you'll give that a good look and that you'll see your feedback reflected there. The document begins with this overview section, and this is nothing new. We took this from our website, the executive order, and many of you, I think, are familiar with this content. We also had a robust discussion in October about the definition of outdoor recreation economy and its importance in helping people understand the services that we provide to the network. So we have included an updated definition of of how we define outdoor recreation economy for the state of Vermont. And so I expect that, we've taken a shot at that definition here based on feedback we discussed in October. I hope you'll give this a more detailed look and make sure it aligns with what you imagine Vermont's outdoor recreation economy to be, or the different components of outdoor recreation economy in Vermont. We've also included a definition of collective impact, since this is core to our program and how we operate. And you'll notice that we've included a graphic which aligns the structure of collective impact with the structure for VOREC. We've also included some page numbers as reference to where you can find more information about these different components within the document. Defining the governance structure of VOREC, a lot of this information is not new, or likely isn't new to you, unless maybe you're Sarah or Eva. We've included some information about the makeup of the steering committee here, with the various positions and the number that are represented. We've also drafted some descriptions of who might sit in these positions. And I hope you, being members of the steering committee, will review those definitions and make sure that those align with your understanding of your role. We've also highlighted information and drawn out information about what the steering committee role is, what the position is, terms, as well as responsibilities. And then finally, we've pulled out some information about, program administration, what the role of the program manager is, and also how we operate on an annual basis. And this content was created in conversation with Becca and Heather, and I hope and better defines and reflects like how we've been operating to date. So we spent a lot of time in October talking about VOREC's network. This section is meant to visualize and describe that network that we talked about in October. In October, we did a little drawing competition and split up and pitched what we thought would be the best drawing of a way to visually describe VOREC's network. And with Andrew's help, we've taken that feedback and created this, this visual that you see here. We've also created some content to describe what that network is. So this information is likely new to everyone, and I hope you will take a closer look at that and give some thought to it, because we did the best we could with the feedback we got in October, but I'm sure that you have additional feedback that we should consider there. The rest of this chapter is intended to describe the various components of this network. So we've broken out stakeholder categories and specific audiences that we're seeing as part of this network. We also have included a description of each of the impact areas. So if you can remember back to June, this is something that came out of that June meeting, where we started to align behind 5 core areas of our work where we're providing services to this network. And in October, we really fleshed out those impact areas and discussed how we might describe those impact areas, as well as some of the actions we might consider. And those actions came from brainstorming conversations we had earlier this year at our meetings in February and April. So please definitely take a close look at how we've described these impact areas. And then The how it works section, so this information is also new. This has come out of conversations we had in October. We wanted a way to help describe, I think what we experienced when we were trying to draw the network was it was really hard to describe how things move in this network, how it operates. And so we decided to draw out this how it works section to help define that a little more clearly. And you'll see that we've sort of described how people might interact with this network at a few different scales. So there's like a collaborating scale, there's a coordinating scale, and an informing scale. And we've described how this network shares resources. We've also described how VOREC communicates with this network. And you'll see like there's listed our direct tools, which include the VOREC email list, the VOREC website, and our playlist on the Department of Forest Parks and Recreation's YouTube channel. And then we've also included some links to some newsletters where we often will share updates and announcements. And then finally, we've pulled out this section on how VOREC supports the overall vision for outdoor recreation in the state. Please make sure you give this a good look too. This is, I think what we've struggled with is understanding how VOREC supports this statewide vision. And we've given some thought to what that looks like on a 5-year scale and pulled out a visual that we think helps to describe that. This is to provide this overall image is meant to be used in conjunction with the information in our various impact areas. So we would look to this timeline as a guide for the kinds of activities we might think about, but really look to our impact areas to define the projects that we're working on. All right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew. And again, I know that was a really fast overview, but we will be sending this out to you to give it a more detailed look with that feedback form. And we'll be giving you time ahead of our next meeting to review that document in more detail.
Before you turn it over to Andrew, I just, I think it would be helpful to, I think your overview is useful in sort of showing how it's this collaboration or accumulation of all of the conversations we've been having. The other thing to think about too is that it's intended to be pretty durable. Like we had a lot of conversations amongst the smaller group of us trying to figure out how much information is the right amount of information to give us a good sideboard for how we want to operate and be really strategic going forward, recognizing that we'll have a work plan that's informed by Move Forward Together Vermont in our impact areas that it is going to look like the actual like things that we get excited about and we see press releases about in the news, but that this is meant to be much more durable in helping guide when we have questions about our role and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure and pause for a moment and just remind folks that this does seem a little bit administrative and a little bit, you know, sort of, yeah, more administrative, but this is going to be really helpful going down the road when we do get to that point where we're starting to contemplate the real tactile action that we're going to get into.
Thanks for
Becca. That's
adding
actually
that, Becca.
a really good. That's a really good segue because I think that's kind of the lens with which we want everyone to review the document when we turn it over to you. So first, good to see everybody again. I know I've seen some of you since October, but yeah, we are excited. I think this is we're nearing the kind of completion of this doc, but we really need the steering committee to kind of pull it across the finish line with us. And that role is really helping us read through it, evaluate it, and think about what works and what doesn't, and what is actually going to do what Becca just said, kind of support you in doing this work. This doesn't lay out the details of what you're going to do next year. This is what you reference when you're planning what you're going to do for next year. You know, and this is something that can be, while it should be durable, it should also be flexible. So you'll see in here that there's things are in some places in rather general terms to kind of provide like a catch-all and umbrella for the direction you might take, a particular impact area or a role that VOREC might play within the network or for the state. But it doesn't like tightly bind you to doing one specific thing. So we hope that it's kind of a basis to launch off of. So my time here is really brief in what I'm going to present to you. One, I was going to go back to the network diagram and ask for some feedback on that, and then walk through the feedback form and what we're going to be asking you when we after we leave the meeting here. So I'll share my screen. And actually, apologies to Jackie. I actually have we have like in between versions. I have a slightly more updated versions for some of the things you asked me to change the other day. So I apologize I didn't get that to you yesterday. So if you can see my screen, I'm going to kind of scroll quickly, so I apologize for that. I'm just going to come down here because I know this is one of these things that was up for debate a bit. Is this, I'll zoom in on this a bit more. This diagram. Is that too bad? That's too big. Okay. Let's get it. So this, does that fill your screen, or is it kind of a bit too big? Can you see the whole thing? Okay.
Looks good.
So I will also pull up our images that we worked on in October. So if you remember this exercise you all completed, we asked you to think about some sort of visual way of representing, because we know that like the visuals in a document like this can really convey a lot of information and kind of maybe solidify how you imagine the network working. And we had some great, images here about how things move and interact with one another, and how there's these like different layers and ways in which people are interacting with different components of the network. There was also this model that we referenced a lot, which is kind of I think someone was calling it the coronavirus molecule model back in October. And that kind of shows this network of connections and interactions that people might play through impact areas and different, sectors, government, business, nonprofits. And then there was this model that was a nice, pretty one, but also shows like VOREC at the center with the steering committee kind of helping it, and then all the partners in this kind of constellation around there. So we took that, and in thinking about it, we're like, what would represent this the best? Kind of incorporate all those pieces. And you'll see here, VOREC is at the center, but it's not necessarily, it's kind of maybe the air traffic control. It's kind of coordinating things, but it's not controlling things. All of these circles are kind of to represent, different ways in which all the partners might interact, but also the ways we might, think about impact areas having interactions too. The categories of partners are not to be imagined in like a set position here. They could have fallen anywhere. We kind of grouped them together a little bit, but not really. I think it was intended to be, seen as they could fit into any one of these parts of this like multifaceted Venn diagram. So I'll stop speaking for a minute and just curious if this feels true to you from the conversations we had in October, or if there's thoughts or critiques or ideas you want to share in this moment. And you'll have more time to do that afterwards as well. So go ahead, Drew, your hand's up.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize. I was not at this meeting when this happened. I just think it's kind of interesting to me in the storytelling zone that media is not in there, as well as outdoor businesses, because primarily in the outdoor space right now, I mean, businesses are the primary storyteller and have really dwarfed media largely. And I understand this is a working document, but it is kind of, I don't know if there's a consideration for things that are going to be in multiple places, or maybe they need to be divided up in some ways. I certainly understand why media is in mere policy and funding, but it's also for consumers to interact with the infrastructure and things like that. And anyway, conservation orgs also doing a ton of storytelling in this space too. So just a thought there.
Yeah, and that's one of those things I think I may have misspoke earlier. We were not really trying to tie any of them to any one particular impact area. We know that like there's some that are going to be drawn more and be more contribute more to those impact areas than others, but that any of them could fill in. And there could be data that comes out of media. There could be policy that comes out of experiences of outdoor businesses or conservation work. So that doesn't matter where they are necessarily, but if I'd love to hear your, thoughts if you want to, when we send out the form for you to fill out, just to really dive in there and explain more of that. We can revise this. This is still very much flexible. So.
I can just share for Drew's benefit, when we were working through some different iterations of this as a smaller group, we had that same sort of existential question around like, how do we actually categorize these, or use a 3D hologram that will allow all of those entities to rotate around the impact areas. We're trying to do this in a two-dimensional way, and it is presenting some limitations to what our intent is behind the illustration, which I think is why Andrew's really interested in getting more feedback on ways that we can show the dynamism of the way that those types of partners would, shift maybe on a dial with the, impact areas also being able to shift.
Yeah, I'll definitely weigh in with additional feedback. I think it may be that how people, we're all storytellers now, right? Everybody with an iPhone and an Instagram account, up to, Heather Pelham in the state, marketing and tourism department. So it may be that media is sort of part and parcel with storytelling and then other things. Anyway, I'll send feedback in another separate time.
Great. Well, any other initial comments? I'm just looking at the clock. I know we have about 6 minutes remaining in what we set aside for this this meeting. So unless anyone has something they really want to share with the group in the moment, there'll be places to share reflections on this. It looks like Jackie, you just came off mute. Do you have something you want to say or share?
Nope.
Oh, sorry. So what I will do is then pull up the form here. So we'll send out the most up-to-date version of the document, and then there's a rather short form to fill out. As you read through the document, you can kind of move through this and fill it out. So that we really are hoping to get your responses and thoughts around if those supporting definitions at the top of the document around collective impact and what outdoor recreation economy mean, really think about those and if they really resonate with you. And then we move through each of the impact areas, and where we were really looking for some feedback is on the action items there. They were intentionally, like I said before, general, but we want to make sure that they feel like the right starting point for you to do some planning year to year. So there'll be opportunity to respond to those. Pardon my scrolling, and then looking at the kind of that 5-year plan, that very last visual that and section that Jackie went over. Do those kind of big kind of milestone type of descriptors match the way you think of the steering committee and VOREC working? And then overall, just any reflections or comments on diagrams, graphics, things that, and then just general comments. Is there anything that this document can't live without? Is there things that need to change for you to be really confident in moving forward this and kind of wrapping it up? So, yeah, I can end there unless there's some questions or thoughts. I'm excited to get the feedback in January sometime, and we'll provide maybe a deadline that's realistic for everybody after the holidays, and be able to incorporate this before we all meet again in February.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, and
Sure.
Thank you all for bearing with us as we shared a lot of information. I think I just want to pause for a minute before we turn to the floor over to our folks who have been listening in today. Just any other comments, reflections on the creation of that foundation document as we get ready to share that out to you all for a more thorough review.
Jackie, I'm just excited to take a look at it when you send it. I think I'll be able to engage with it a little more on my own. but it looks like a lot of work went into it. So thank you for doing all that and reflecting what we did in the meeting in October.
Yeah, just initially, it's a well done piece. I mean, it's exciting to see that come together and think about all the different opportunities to use a tool like that, of which there are many.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm excited to hear your thoughts and feedback as you start to dig into that. All right. Well, with that, we have a couple minutes left, and I know we have some folks who have been listening in today. Thank you again for joining us and staying for the full time. I want to turn the floor over to anyone who might have comments for the steering committee or questions about the content we covered today. Turn the floor over to you, and I'll look for raised hands. Yeah, Robin.
Hi, I don't really have a comment or question, but just wanted to attend today to learn more about how I can get involved in the outdoor recreation community. So thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Great. All right. Any other business that we haven't covered today? Covered quite a lot. Any other events on folks' radar that I did see? I thought maybe there was another one dropped in the chat.
I don't know if we shared the last VOREC steering committee meeting as the park season was wrapping up, but it's pretty exciting to see that we surpassed 1,000,000 visitors again this year. We really weren't sure what that was going to look like because of flood closures again, but we finished the season well above last year, which was heavily impacted by flooding, and did great this year. Same, more than 1 million visitors.
Ooh, I saw Drew ask, when's the VOREC holiday party? And there is not one scheduled, but a great idea for next year.
You think Lawson's would host? Let's do it.
Ooh, definitely.
To follow up on your comment, Becca, I can also share, I wish I could share it today. We have some new economic impact numbers for tourism that we're just holding. I've mentioned it at a couple. I'll just tell you the top line, but we haven't actually come out with a press release yet. But for the first time, we've been able to do a deeper dive into economic analysis, and we can now say that for years and years, we've been saying we'd see 13 million visitors a year. It's now 15.8 million visitors, and that the total economic impact of the visitor economy is 4 billion. We used to say 3 billion. So that's as of 2023. There'll be a lot more detail coming out with that, including economic impact on the county level. So sorry, I couldn't give you more detail on that. We're trying to figure out how best to do it. Hopefully a press event with the governor to really make sure that folks understand the power of the visitor economy, of which outdoor recreation is a huge part. So weaving the BEA numbers into that will be part of how we manage communications on that. But just while we're talking about big numbers, a few more to throw
Super
in there.
exciting. That's great.
Right. Great other business. All right. Well, we are at time, so I am going to adjourn us, and I hope you all have a great holiday, a good New Year, and thank you again for all your work this year and really reflecting and celebrating on everything we've accomplished together. So I hope you take some time to relax.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks,
Jackie.
everybody.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy holiday.
Thank you.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
New Year.